Love it. Thank you guys. 9 people have voted so far. If you have not yet recorded your answer in the poll, please make sure you do so shortly. And then also make sure you are getting that second answer ready. Again, we're going to do a chat bomb, so don't put your answer in the poll or in the chat yet. We're going to do that together. All right, awesome. I'm going to end our poll in about 5 seconds. All right, I'm showing our results. So if you want to see how the class voted, you can just click those 3 shapes at the top of your screen. And it looks like unanimously we all got the correct answer. You guys are smart. Good job. Our correct answer was D, 21 feet squared. And this was a composite figure. We had to find the area of 2 rectangles and add them together, something we are going to be doing today. The second one, we wanted to get a chat bomb ready. So we wanted to find f of -2. So get your answer ready. We're all going to press enter at the same time, but get it typed into the chat. And we'll press enter in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Wow, you guys are so smart. Good job. Yes, it is 2. So if you're a little bit iffy on how we got there, real quick, I'm going to show our results. So we were trying to find f of -2, which basically means that we're just plugging in -2 for all of our x's in our function. And you'll notice I put it in parentheses. So -2 cubed would give us -8. And then -5 times -2, that gives us +10. Add those 2 together, and voila, we get our final answer of 2. Are there any questions on either of our do now problems this morning? All right, I'm going to take the silence as a good thing. If you think of a question, don't be afraid to throw it in the chat. Now, here is where I would go to my week at a glance with my students. And this is just kind of what my week at a glance looks like. This is obviously a sample one, but we would go through any important due dates, talk about tutoring, and then go down to today's agenda. So we already completed bullet point number 1, which was our warm-up. We are moving on to our second bullet point, which is our Riemann sum exploration. So we are session 3. So if you have this agenda open, I know it was in the meet, it was in the details for the meet, then you're going to click on that 3rd link. If not, don't worry. I'm going to throw that link in the chat. I am asking that everybody open the Jamboard because today I am going to give you guys editing rights, and I'm going to ask that you edit along with me. Now, with editing rights, there do come a little bit of restriction. So first thing, please don't delete or change other people's responses. Please don't make your sticky note as big as the frame. I can't really get it down at that point. And also, please make sure that you are only editing when I ask you to edit. Now, I am also going to pull it up on my screen. So it should look like this. And I see many of you are joining. Awesome. Give everybody another couple seconds to make sure they click that link. I'll put it in the chat one more time in case you missed it. All right, I think the majority of us have joined. So I am gonna, if you have that Jamboard open, you're gonna move to frame 2 with me. We're looking at area today. So on frame 2, you should see a shape on a coordinate plane. And I want to know what area formula do you think you would use here? Now, I'm not asking that you find the area of the shape. And I'm just asking that you give it your best guess. So think all the way back to geometry from high school. And I want to know what area formula you think you would use. So to indicate that to me, because I figured out that the sticky notes have been a little bit dangerous today with the amount of people coming in and out, we're going to use a text box. So you can add a text box here just by going to the far left, clicking that T, and then you can just put like a star or something in there and move that to whichever category you think it belongs in. Okay. The other thing that I ask you do is that you don't use the undo button. That if you need to delete what you put, just click on that and delete it. All right, so I'll give everybody about 20 to 30 seconds to try and figure out what formula I would use to find the area of that shape. Give it your best shot. Awesome. I'm seeing a little bit of a theme here. Overwhelmingly, the majority of us have picked base times height or S squared. There are a couple people in the other section. If an other person wants to throw in the chat why they chose that, that would be wonderful. But I would say both of these formulas are correct. Technically, one is a little bit more correct than the other. Length times width, that's a difference of variables. So technically, that length times width, that could fall on the base times height. The reason that S squared would be a little bit more exact is because this is a square. So all of these sides, they're the same length. So we can just use, instead of base times height or length times width, you can do side times side or side squared. All right, good job, everybody. Now let's kick it up a notch. Let's try this next one. So if you're on the Jamboard, you are going to frame 3. I want you again to place the category that you think the formula you would use to find the area of this shape. Good, good. So yes, if you have already responded, we are using that very top left category, area equals 1/2 base times height. That is our formula for the area of a triangle, and we do in fact have a triangle here. So good job, everybody. We're killing it. All right, now let's move on to a little bit trickier of one. I have this shape. And for those of you that maybe don't see it, let me add something a little bit to this. Let me add a line here and see if that helps us. So you can, hint, hint, add your text box to 2 formulas if you would like this time. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And if you're on the Jamboard, we're on frame 4 right now. Love it. Love what I'm seeing. Can somebody tell? Oh, that's okay. I'll fix it. There we go. Can somebody tell me why they put a text box in this one and in this one? Yeah, Fitz, thank you for volunteering.
You're welcome. So there's like a half circle at the top. So I would do the circle formula, which is like down at the bottom, and then there's a triangle. It's like an ice cream cone. So there's like 2 shapes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fitz. It's made up of our 2 shapes, so we're going to have to use our 2 formulas. And technically, if we want to get into it, this is a semicircle, so we would have to divide this by 2 once we found our area. Awesome job. So here's where we really get into some calculus. Let's go on. How would I find the area of this shape, do we think? Give it your best shot. If you're on the Jamboard, we are moved to frame 5. Yeah, I'm seeing majority of you are throwing it in that other section, just from the little kind of pictures I can see. Russell, can you tell me why you put it in the other section? You can either unmute yourself or throw it in the chat.
Because it's an odd area. There's no specific shapes there.
Exactly right. Yeah, we don't have a perfect shape here. It sort of resembles a circle. So one might think maybe we could manipulate the circle formula here a little bit, but it's not totally there. We would still be off by quite a bit. So here is where our calculus skills come in. And this is where we start using Riemann sums to estimate area. And now is where I would ask a virtual person to read the I can statement, but I won't put you guys through that today. Our I can statement is I can estimate the area under a curve using a Riemann sum. So what we're doing is we are estimating that area under the curve. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but this is the calculus version of our estimation here. So if you go to the next frame, frame 7, this is what a Riemann sum looks like. Dun, 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 dun. And there are 3 options for a Riemann sum. There is a left hand, a right hand, and a midpoint. And that's what those 3 pictures are from left to right. And what this essentially does is that we look at any curve and we line up rectangles right next to each other. And depending on the height of the function, we change the height of the rectangle. And then what we can do is we just do our base times our height and add up all of those areas of all of those rectangles to get a good estimation. Now, again, I am kind of going in hyperspeed. So if you do have a question, don't be afraid to throw your hand up or to throw it in the chat and let me know. There is a little bit of a difference, though, as we talk about these different types of estimations. So who can tell me a big difference between like this first one and the second one? What do we notice that is different? And again, you don't have to use mathematic like terminology. I just want to know in life, what is different here? What do you notice? What are your observations? You can unmute yourself or throw it in the chat. Russell, yeah, you raise your hand.
One of them looks like you're going to get an overestimate, and one looks like you're going to get an underestimate.
Ah, and you use the right terminology. Look at you go. Awesome. Yeah, so Riemann sums, they do have overestimates and underestimates. Again, they are not perfect. Sometimes we get a little bit under the area. Sometimes we get a little bit over the area. And it depends on where we draw the heights of those rectangles. So how do we determine the heights of those rectangles? How do we determine the heights of those rectangles? Let's take a look. My Jamboard is not cooperating. Erasing. There we go. Let's start with this middle one because I think that's the easiest one to visualize. If I want to find, I've kind of divided it into 4 little sections, my 4 little rectangles. And then to define the height of each of those rectangles, since this is a right-hand sum, I'm going to go to the right side of each of these intervals, kind of draw my imaginary line to the function line, and put a dot there. And then that will be my height of my rectangle. I determine my height based on that right side. Let me show you one more time if you're like, what the heck just happened? Okay. Again, we're looking at our interval. I'm going to look on that right-hand side of my interval. So now I'm going from 1 to 2. I draw my little invisible line up to that function. And then that's my height for my second rectangle. One more time, maybe on the right hand, on that interval 2 to 3. I'm looking at the right hand side. I'm going to draw my little invisible, oh, I should have picked a different color. Let's go red. I'm going to draw my little invisible line up to my function and draw my height based on that. Now let's look at the left-hand side. So here, again, I'm using that same idea, and I'm going to start from 1 to 2 because that first interval can be a little bit confusing. Now this time, instead of going to the right like I normally would, now I'm going to go to the left. And then I again draw my little invisible line here, put my height on the function line, and that's how I determine the height of my rectangle. The reason this one looks like there is no rectangle here, there is technically a little invisible rectangle because our left-hand height was at 0. I'm going to pause. What questions do we have on the right versus the left? All right, Ms. Carr, what about this last one? Great question. This midpoint sum, this is where we still are looking at our intervals, but instead of going to the left or the right side, we pick the point in the very middle of those intervals, trace our little line up to the function, and that is where we pick our height for our rectangle. All right, after looking at those three types of Riemann sums, just to get a general read of our class, can I get on a scale of 1 to 5 where we're at? 1 being I'm totally lost, 5 being I got this. For drawing our rectangles. And if you have a question, now's also a wonderful time to ask. Hey, I will take 3s and 4s. I like those. Ha, Corey. All right, so what we're going to do, if you're looking at the next frames of our Jamboard, you're seeing that we have different frames with group numbers on them. So we are going to do the world's shortest breakout room session today, just to give you guys kind of a glimpse of how I would do this in the class. And so your breakout room, once you get put in a room, you're going to go to that frame. So let's say you're in breakout room 2, you'll go to the section that says group 2. And it's going to ask you to kind of draw these rectangles based on this description. So for example, in this group 2 one, it asks us to draw a right Riemann sum. And what you're going to do to draw that, I already have these little rectangles down here. All you have to do is click on them, click this top thing, and then you can drag the height of that rectangle to where it needs to be, right? So you're going to try and draw your right, your left, or your mid, depending on which group you're in. Are there any questions? And again, these are going to be the world's shortest breakout rooms. Oh, I got to shuffle, I guess. I don't know why it's only putting you guys in 2 groups. This is weird. Well, I guess we're going to have just 2 giant groups because breakout rooms is being weird. Okay. That's okay. I changed the group number. I think it's just because I've had the meet open for so long that it's kind of, it has like all the older people from the meet in there as well. So, all right. So what's going to happen? I'm going to give you guys about 3 minutes just for the sake of time. I am going to ask that one person presents their screen. So if one person could present the Jamboard, that would be wonderful. Again, if you need the Jamboard link, here we go. All right, when you are prompted to do so, please enter your room. Here we go. Oh, wait, it put me in a room. I don't want that. All right. Here we go.
Can you clear up who's right? Because we both did the same thing, both groups.
Yeah, I was like, I think
Yes.
we didn't fail you.
All right, let me pull up our presentation here. Still have a couple people joining in. Oh, we have just about everybody. Awesome. So let's look at group one. All right, group one, you wanted to find the left-hand Riemann sum. Okay, so we were looking at our left heights for our rectangles. So if I'm looking at, let's say, this interval from 1 to 2, I need to kind of draw my height of my rectangle based on this left side. So what we do is we kind of mark this out and we're going to drag our rectangle until it meets the function up here. So we needed to actually extend these rectangles a little bit more for our left sums. You guys found a right sum. That's okay. It's been a while since you did calculus. All right, let's look at group two. How do we do group two? Group two, you killed it. Good job. You did a right-hand sum. Awesome. So let's talk about these. Our first one, or group two, you said that this was an underestimate. Absolutely. All of our rectangles are underneath. And you'll notice that this kind of changes based on, now normally I would have like 6 different groups and some of you guys would have concave up functions and some of you guys would have concave down functions. And we'd talk about how that affects the underestimates and overestimates. Now, granted, there were only 2 breakout rooms, so they were both concave down, which means that this was an underestimate. And then if we go back to this first group, if I were to kind of fix our rectangles a little bit here, let's extend these. We're going to our left height. From here, what type of estimate would we have if I were to extend these all to my left height? If you know it, throw it in the chat. Yeah, it would be an overestimate. Awesome. Well, you guys were a wonderful class to have. We obviously did not get through the entire lesson, but I think you guys got a good snapshot of kind of what this lesson would look like. If you want, you are more than welcome to kind of peruse through the rest of my Jamboard and see where I was going with this. The only thing that I would ask of you today is to, if you have a moment, to fill out the survey for me. I'm throwing the link for that in the chat here. And the survey just kind of tells me what you liked, what you disliked, and then it gives you guys an opportunity also to ask me any questions. So if you had any questions about what I did today or what resources I used, or just a question in general about math, I can try and answer those. Are there any questions right now?